Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Lobby, GameSpot's weekly hangout here at 2 p.m. Pacific from San Francisco, California. It's my first time on in 3 weeks, so I'm back hosting this week. Pete Brown is still out, but Rob Handler, we got you here. You're going to be on the whole day. We got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to be here with you. Great to have you on, as always. And Eric Tay, who's usually behind the scenes, but every once in a while comes on to lend us some expertise about a shooter here and there.
Sometimes.
Yeah, we've got a full show today. We're going to go through a few things. We got a few weird kind of things we're going to do about historical games with Mafia, because we've already talked Mafia to death. We're going to have Scott on, and there's not much more point in talking about the review anymore because we did a couple updates, but we're going to talk about period piece games in general. Call of Duty beta. We're all playing a lot of games right now. I'm not a lot we can't talk about yet, but a lot coming up. But anyway, yeah, it's a full show. Rob Handler, did you get the chance to play the Call of Duty beta at all?
No, I did not, unfortunately, but I did get to comb through a lot of footage of Eric Tay over here playing it. I'm more into your guys' opinions. I mean, how it plays is something completely different from what I've seen, but it looks like COD.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because it's Infinity Ward. The last game they released was Ghosts, and that was kind of following the whole thing with Respawn forming with Vince Zampella, Jason West, and Grant Collier left. And so this could, theoretically be their first game to put them back on the map. I'm sure that's what they're hoping, because Ghosts was kind of not received all that well. The multiplayer was a little bit stale. The campaign, same thing. But so this is the first chance. I think tomorrow it goes wide to the public on PS4. It's either tomorrow or today, but right now it's closed beta. And you and I played. We streamed it yesterday, Eric. What are your overall thoughts so far? How does it feel?
Much to what Rob said, it's kind of like another COD. There are little layers of differences, I guess. The double jump wall running stuff they kind of had already in Advanced Warfare. So they're kind of tweaking that a little bit. And then now there's rigs instead of specialists like in Black Ops 3. So there's a little bit more to that kind of gameplay or that system that they've kind of gone with. So every rig has 3 payloads or 2 or 3 payloads, which is kind of I know Peter's going to hate me for saying this, but it's a special ability, essentially, an ultimate, even though they're called payloads. And then they all have traits of which do different things. So each character does different things. And certain abilities will probably play better for certain game types and whatnot. So it's just, I guess, another extra layer, but it's not that different. And then the weapons, you can craft them now, which is slightly different, or get them in boxes, which you do quests or just log in daily and you get keys and you open them and you just hope to God you get a epic, I guess.
Which the loot crate system is kind of pervasive in shooters now. I mean, Overwatch has had a big deal. It was the aesthetic, the skins and the emotes and whatnot earlier this year. Titanfall, I'm not sure what they're going to have yet. Battlefield 1 has the battle packs. That's very similar. You get skins, you get new weapons. And that's kind of become this thing where it's almost a gamble, right? I mean, obviously, you don't have to spend real world money if you don't want to, but it's kind of the more time you invest, the more chance you have at getting whatever you want, I guess.
Yeah.
Did we get anything? I got an epic. So it's it's kind of like the traditional Diablo, Destiny loot. It's a blue weapon, purple, and then orange are the epics. I got an epic for a weapon, and then I didn't actually have the weapon itself unlocked until level 20 or something.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter. At least in the beta it didn't. I don't know if that's going to change. But you also have these factions, right? What are they called? The mission teams?
Yeah.
So there's the Wolverines, there's other factions. Can you explain how those work?
So I didn't go too in-depth with them, but it just seems they're kind of your faction that you pledge your allegiance to, so to speak. You get missions from him to do certain objectives within the game that you're playing. So it's headshots or double kills or payload kills or something like that. And every time you do that, you slowly level. So you have 2 things you're leveling, right? You're leveling your core level, which allows you to access more guns and gear and stuff like that, as well as the rigs. And then you have kind of your faction, which also unlocks guns and stuff like that. So, and I think he gives you keys and salvage and materials and stuff like that. So it's just kind of getting you to do all these little extra, almost bounties, in Destiny. So it's while you're playing the game, try to get headshots. You get headshots, you'll level up your faction reputation, and you'll get benefits from it. Kind of a little layer.
It's they just added even more layers to the progression, every single shooter does now. I feel maybe not every single, but a lot of the military shooters do that, right? Now you have mission teams to worry about. You have the legendary weapons and the crafting to think about. You have just these, I mean, obviously you're unlocking things like call signs and whatnot, but you have aesthetic things for your the different rigs. So the rigs, not to keep pointing out hero shooters or MOBAs, but it's that's kind of becoming a thing because Titanfall 2 has the Titans themselves are like characters now with superpowers rather than a heavier light with specific loadouts that people are going to go for. But we can get into that like probably next week more with Titanfall 2. But it's kind of this ubiquitous thing now where the hero shooters kind of invading military shooters now because like the rigs, the specialists in Black Ops 3 were kind of the inception of this idea with Call of Duty, right? You had these different characters that you could recognize them and know that Sparrow's longbow is pretty dangerous. If you see the sonar pulse, you know she's kind of like picking out people with radar and whatnot. It's not only about how you play those characters, it's about how to know how to counter them. Have you found that to be pretty deep in the beta so far?
I didn't notice it as much as like you would like in Overwatch, but I mean, obviously, when you see someone have their payload out, especially if it's like a weapon type like based one, you definitely want to try to kill them as fast as possible or run away or try to get to a spot where like your team can team fire them.
Sure.
So like, you know, if is it Synaptic or Synaptic? He can go into that like kind of robot dog mode, right? Where he basically can wall run or run on the ground, and then he one shots you with melee. But he has to get pretty close to you to do that. So like if you can get away or use some of the movement mechanics that are in the game to get away, then hopefully there's some of that, I guess. But in terms of like hard countering some stuff, I haven't seen it, but if you read some of the tooltips, they do say, hey, it's like certain traits and stuff like that will like hard counter something else. I haven't seen it in terms of like the payloads necessarily, but I'm sure like if you're FTL, if you have like essentially like the golden gun, right? Like if you see someone else,
I think it's called
eraser, the eraser. If you see, you know, someone else with, you know, the steel warhead or whatever, like you can just shoot them, and like that's how you deny it. It's kind of how it was in Black Ops 3 in a way too.
I think one thing like a lot of people are curious about, I don't know how much you've seen it yet, Rob, but I think people saw that they said they might be like using the low gravity in cool ways during multiplayer. At least we hoped they would, but right now on the what's the map? Close quarters. Frontier. It's like these hallways and sight lines. And I like the map because it's cool how like it kind of folds in on itself underneath certain hallways, but it's this spaceship hallway, and like every time someone dies, they just float into the air. But
that seemed to be the case for a lot of the maps. But my question was going to be: are different maps like, do they have different like forms of gravity or heightened gravity in some of them? Because it felt like every time you were doing a double jump or a floaty jump, it looked like a mannequin was kind of like flying around the map. And it was just a weird something that I feel like for a COD game I've never seen before. Like
right. Well, it's weird because in this, I can't remember for the life of me. In Black Ops 3, did you also have to kind of hold the boost button to do the double jump as opposed to Titanfall where you just tap it twice? Because right now you kind of, to use up the whole meter, it's like this meter you use up, and wall running uses it, double jumping uses it, sliding a little bit
Black
too.
Ops 3 had a little bit more of like a feather to it. Like you could kind of get a little more out of it. Like it was a little more controlled opposed to a hard second jump.
Because this
like
right now,
this does it too. Same thing.
Okay. This right now is you have to like hold it a little bit to use the whole double jump, and that kind of worries me because I don't want my thumb to be there. I want it to be on the analog stick, ready to aim at somebody. I mean, because if you just let go, you're not going to do the full height of your jump, and if you need that full height to vault over something or get to this wall to run down it, kind of worries me. It's a minor mechanic. I'm sure it wouldn't affect the overall game too much, but it feels good in general. Same thing with the ground dash. You have to kind of hold circle or B when you're sprinting and everything. But that's the one thing I haven't seen. This is just the beta. The game, we got one of our editors is reviewing it right now, but obviously he can't talk about it yet. It releases early November, but right now it doesn't seem like they're using the future aesthetic to make the maps actually interesting. I mean, I like the rigs and I like the idea of those, and I like that they're a little deeper than the specialists because the specialists were kind of, again, like the introduction to that idea. They had the mobility and everything from Advanced Warfare and like the earlier Titanfall, but right now I'm not seeing too much creativity like when I kind of want to at this point when we're this close to release. I don't know, because you have like, we're talking in like a few minutes about which shooter is right for you coming out this fall. I mean, we had Doom and Overwatch and, Battleborn earlier in the year, but now we have like another 3, which are all kind of similar, like military shooters. And, you kind of have to set yourself apart, especially if you're Call of Duty, which releases every year. People are going to buy it. People are going to like it, I'm sure. It will probably be decent from everything I've played so far. But I don't know. I kind of was hoping that we would see more in the beta about them being creative.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, it's like, we're pretty deep in the game now, so I'm pretty sure like what you saw in the beta outside of like some like rig balancing or weapon balancing is kind of what you're going to get unless there's more maps that we haven't seen, which is possible. But I mean, Frontier is probably like a decent example of like where they could have messed with low grab a little bit and they didn't, right? So I don't know if they're gonna innovate in terms of that, in terms of like maps and stuff like that. So I don't expect that so much. But it's another solid COD game. The shooting's like what you would expect. No, like very little recoil. Action's really fast. You get back in like really quickly. I think that's kind of part of the allure of playing COD, I guess, is that like even if you die, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go get that guy because I can respawn like right away. Whereas like with the Battlefield and some of these games we're gonna talk about later, it's a little bit different. But it's definitely an interesting time with like these three kind of like all futuristic shooters, or well, sans Battlefield, but all these shooters coming out like almost like weeks after each other.
Yeah, to be completely fair, I had fun with Call of Duty. I don't know if I would want to play it past that level 30 mark. I think is 30 the cap for the beta.
30 is the cap for the beta, but I'm sure there's probably more rigs than that.
And again, there's another handful of maps we don't even have access to right now. We're going to be able to probably get more into the weapon crafting just because we're playing with different mission teams, I would assume. I think there's only one unlocked right now, or two.
There's two, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I think there are more than that. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And again, I'm kind of more curious about the campaign at this point. The campaign is the one thing that, they said there's no loading screens. It's just like this seamless thing. You're either taking off from Earth to space or vice versa, or planet to space. I don't know what planets you go to. Or it's a cutscene, which sounds cool. Or you're in that hub ship, which sounds cool because if it's this kind of, I don't know how they're going to structure it, but if it's this seamless kind of thing that you're just playing the whole time and not just going, oh, mission 3, let's just replay that. That sounds like that could set this game apart from like Black Ops 3, which had a pretty decent campaign. It wasn't my favorite, but I'm pretty curious about single player in this game.
Or like any Call of Duty game. Like that doesn't sound linear at all, which is like totally the Call of Duty experience. Yeah.
And the space combat, I haven't tried yet at all. I don't think, aside from people that are like reviewing it ostensibly, I haven't touched that. I don't think anybody has. But yeah, so that is Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. The beta, I believe, I think it's either today or tomorrow. It's open for everybody on PS4, and that will be, like public now. It won't just be closed. So more people will be able to play it, go up to level 30, and you guys will get to try it out. And let us know what you think in the comments below. Eric Tay, sadly, I have to bid you adieu for now.
Yeah, where's the next person now?
Scott Butterworth is going to come on, and we're going to talk about...
There he is.
Going to touch on Mafia 3 again.
I'm going to let him in.
Yeah, go for that. We're going to touch on Mafia 3 again. He's talked that game to death. He played a ton of it. Really good review is up. We can get into it quick, like his score and everything and what he thought about that. But yeah, going to touch on that briefly. And here he comes now. But I don't know, Rob, what have you been playing lately? Just Battlefield?
Yeah, Battlefield. I played a little bit of Mafia 3. Okay. That story and the style of the documentary theme, just in general, like, is super gripping.
It's great.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So Mafia 3, Scott, you have talked about it a fair amount on the lobby already.
Yeah, I think we did like an Ask a Reviewer last week, but that was before the final review went up. So finally, like the score and everything's on the site.
And that went up what day was it? Do you remember?
Last Wednesday.
Last Wednesday.
I was on the show talking about it on Tuesday, and then the final review went up on Wednesday.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about the review briefly because you've already talked about that. But then we want to throw a curveball, kind of do like a more fun feature. Like we just want to talk about historical games in general, period piece games, our favorites. Just like between, I don't know, I've got a few picked out: LA Noire, Assassin's Creed games. Battlefield 1 might be interesting to talk about. It's obviously they're not going for realism, but it's kind of, that's like the big draw of that game. But anyway, so Mafia 3, you gave it a 6 out of 10. Can you tell us like final thoughts that you might not have gone into on the lobby yet, or like overall?
The big thing again is the score. I feel like I explained a lot of like my thinking and what ultimately went into the final review. In fact, I think I even used a lot of the same language when I was on the show that eventually made its way into the review. But I mean, this is just one of those situations, like I always say, please read the text. Don't focus entirely on the number. Scoring that game was very difficult because it is such an inconsistent experience. I mean, in that the story is so excellent and the shooting is so like fine and the technical problems were pretty persistent. It's been a mix across the board. Like I've seen people in comment sections on our site and on other sites saying like, I had no problems whatsoever, and then people saying like, oh, I could barely get through a mission without the game crashing. Like, so it seems to be pretty inconsistent. But we again tested the game on all 3 platforms, experienced hard crashes among other problems on all 3 platforms. Wow. So ultimately, when it came time to score the game and put out the final review, it was like, okay, like we can confirm that these issues impact every platform, and it's not something we can overlook, and therefore it drags the score down.
And that's what sucks about technical issues. Those are always sporadic from one person to the next. I know I had some technical issues with Gears of War 4, and other people are saying that didn't happen at all with me. I was like, well, lucky for you, that made your experience much better. And like I unfortunately did experience them, but it's kind of sporadic. But like from what we've seen, Mafia 3 is pretty much across the board. Everybody's noticing big problems.
Yeah, it seems like the people not having problems are a lot more rare than people experiencing at least some level of technical difficulty.
Whether they're game breaking or just something funny, like Lucy James over in our UK office, she like kind of she slightly nudged that speedboat,
It's so
did a
good.
few barrel rolls, and then launched into the air, was
so
spinning
good.
around, and then for about 10 seconds, I'm not exaggerating, she was looking up into the sky to try to find it, and then all of a sudden it just missiled her boat and blew her up.
Yep.
It was awesome.
It's so
film
good.
that?
Oh, she
Yeah.
filmed, she tweeted it. I think, I don't know how many retweets it got,
I
but
have
it was
to see it.
I think it's on like our Facebook as well. I think it's on
Yeah.
like the GameSpot Facebook, and she definitely tweeted this like, I don't know, 3 or 4 days ago. It's so good.
Yeah.
Like
Man.
one of the funniest glitches I've seen in a very long time.
should definitely check it out. But for what it's worth, I played the first 90 minutes of Mafia 3. I loved. I think I've played about 5 hours total now. And from what you said, it's a huge, really long game. But already I started to feel like it repetitive with like clearing out rackets and kind of setting up things with your
Yeah.
cohorts and kind of just shooting a lot of people when I kind of wanted to be making better use of the open world than just driving and shooting. But I do love that setting, and I do love New Orleans. And I love that they put so much research into it. They tackled tough stuff like this racial tension, political strife of 1968, probably like the most, if not one of the most turbulent years in American history. And that was a bold thing to do. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of different opinions on whether they succeeded or not, but that's a world I'm going to remember for a long time. And that's kind of what's cool about video games in certain cases, because Mafia 3's version of New Orleans, New Bordeaux, it's fictionalized. They added hills, they added tunnels. They just, like, in general, some things about the period they reworked to better fit the game. But that's why I want to talk about just historical games. I guess period piece would be the film term. But I don't know, Rob, like, there's a bunch of games that have gone into like this kind of using an actual setting to set a tone or tell a story. Do you have any like favorites that come to mind?
I remember showing, like, having just got like a PS2 and showing I believe it was Medal of Honor Frontline. And of course, like a lot of those Call of Duty games came out like after Saving Private Ryan, and we're that movie really changed like how people visualized and not so much romanticized that war. And man, that like Frontline scene in the beginning where you're like on the landing craft just like Private Ryan, like planes whiz by. I remember like seeing that and then showing like my mom, and she was like, this is incredible. Like, we were blown away. Like, I remember like that for me was like the height of video games at that time.
Yeah, because it was weird, because that was one of the first games I can remember where you get onto the beach and your objective wasn't to shoot somebody, it was just to shoot, like suppressing fire. I don't know if you remember that.
Right.
And the rest of the American troops wouldn't move up the beach until you just fire your Thompson up there a little bit. And now that seems normal. Like in Battlefield 1, you get suppression bonuses for just shooting in an enemy's direction if they're behind cover. But yeah, I remember that was just straight out of Saving Private Ryan. Like that intro scene that Hanks and Spielberg and everybody worked on was just unreal. And it did definitely set a tone, because later on it gets more into the espionage stuff, right? You're kind of like a covert soldier later on. You go onto like German U-boats to sabotage their supplies and whatnot. But
Yeah.
I don't know, but like I wonder how much research went into that game as far as like making it historically accurate.
Totally.
I had a similar experience with Allied Assault, which also depicted the storming the beach at Normandy, and just like so much stuff happening around you, which at the time was pretty new. Like shooter campaigns were very like, hey, you're in a room, there's some guys ahead of you, run and shoot and keep going and whatever. This was very much like, no, you're participating. You're just one small cog in this much larger battle, and there's stuff blowing up around you and people dying around you. Just seeing that and being immersed in that was very new and very like spectacular for the time. And yeah, I mean, it is cool just to be sort of very, I hate the word, but viscerally experiencing a piece of history like that, and to know that like this is a recreation of something that actually happened. I mean, if we're talking about historical periods and period pieces in games, I mean, clearly World War II is one of the most like, deeply mined sources of history for, material. And I think that, I mean, as you mentioned, we've covered a lot of different aspects of that war in a lot of different and interesting ways.
Yeah, and I remember, I think Call of Duty 2 came along. That was my first Xbox 360 game. And that, instead of storming, so it's Omaha Beach in Medal of Honor Frontline. Allied Assault, I believe it's Omaha Beach too. But then like Utah Beach was the one that we stormed to link up with the 101st Infantry after they dropped behind enemy lines the night before. Point du Hoc in Call of Duty 2 when the Rangers were scaling those cliffs. I read a pretty extensive account of it. Like I forget what book it was. I think it was Citizen Soldiers. Stephen Ambrose, who wrote Band of Brothers, also wrote Citizen Soldiers, and they were scaling these cliffs to take out these like anti-naval guns, I think. And then they got there. The Germans already moved them, so the intel was bad. But like that was also unreal, because again, that was my first 360 game. So that like each time I play like a newer game, obviously Frontline isn't going to look good right now, but then you get like Call of Duty 2, which doesn't even look that great now. But at the time, it was like, this is unreal. Yeah. And, it's weird because like now we have Battlefield 1 come around, and that was a big thing. Like I have how much of the campaign have you played?
I actually played a good amount. I've been kind of holding back for the PC, and I finally kind of got into that. Played like that kind of like that. I suppose it's just like the intro of the game.
Prologue, right?
The prologue, yeah. That was super uncomfortable.
Just
like people scream. Like we when we did the stream the other day and playing the operations mode. I don't know if you've seen it at all, Scott, but like there's a lot more narrative, but I would say there's a lot more like emotion. Like there are people blowing that whistle and then just tons of people just screaming and charging. There is something extremely unsettling about like playing that game. One, it looks freaking unreal, and just shooting people feels extremely uncomfortable compared to like, I don't know. I mean, you want to compare it to like Frontline, like we said, but there's something about how it looks, the mud, knowing about World War I compared to World War II. Like, it
was not nearly as like in a lot of ways cut and dry,
evil.
black versus white.
Right.
Yeah, and that was the thing about. I remember like now that you're talking about it, there's that scene from like Enemy at the Gates that we were talking about. It was in Call of Duty Finest Hour when you're running across Red Square in Stalingrad, and then you got one guy with a rifle, one guy with a bandolier in case he dies. Like you pick it up and shoot, and that's kind of the same thing. Battlefield 1, from what I've played of the campaign, what little I've played, and from multiplayer, the operations mode we were just talking about, it's the story-driven, like kind of, I guess, pertinent to this conversation. It's that story-driven. What would have happened if the Germans defended this in the Italian Alps, and like the U.S. actually pushed them back, or what if the U.S. actually failed? And there is much more impact to Battlefield 1, and Frostbite engine helps, like having that, like the condensation on the guns, the mud on your gun when you go prone and get back up, it creates a better sense of place. Again, these are like maps designed to be fun in the end, and they are they're trying to shed light on these like lesser known historical accounts. Did campaign do that much farther in? Like I know one is Lawrence of Arabia, one is there's like an Italian, he's like a heavy trooper, right? And his granddaughter's telling the story from his point of view.
Yeah, I haven't gone that far.
Okay. Yeah, and anyway, like that game itself, kind of, I like that they actually, I know Miguel Concepcion, we're going to have him come on and talk more about his review in a few minutes, but he was saying there's a lot, it's bleak, the campaign.
Yeah.
And he said it almost feels ham-fisted, but then when you look at it, maybe it should, because it was World War I. It was the war that, like, called it the Great War because we didn't know anything like that would ever happen again. But I don't know, to get away from the more depressing side of the games, LA Noire is one of my, that game is so flawed in so many ways, and especially the core mechanics. I don't know if did you guys play LA Noire?
Oh yeah. It did not need to be an open world game.
No, not at all. And because the conversations were a cool thing, and then, but the setting, like that, just LA in the 50s reminds me of like, I don't know, just like a ton of movies that are set there. LA Confidential is one of my favorite movies, and it nails that. Like the way everybody dresses, the facial animation capture helped, but I remember that just every time I talk to somebody, their accents, a lot of people from Mad Men were in the show. The main character in LA Noire is Ken Cosgrove from Mad Men.
Yeah.
But I don't know, what did you think of, you said it didn't need to be open world. Why do you think that you should, like more linear, would you have preferred?
Well, because it was basically an adventure game that for whatever reason was set in an open world. It didn't really make sense. I mean, the game was all about, acting as a detective in classic Los Angeles, right, in vintage LA. There was no reason to like include driving and shooting in that, really. I mean, there was all this attention paid to like, the voice acting and facial capture, as you mentioned, which at the time was pretty revolutionary, even if it looks a little bit wonky and bizarre now. So it's weird to me that they would invest all those resources in that aspect of the game and this really unique and interesting aspect of the game, and then shoehorn that into this open world structure. I mean, from what I remember, that game had a pretty tortured development cycle or whatever. People suspect that Rockstar was kind of like pressuring Team Bondi to finish the project, and they were not happy with how things were turning out, and that may have directed certain design decisions, and that might be why the game turned out the way it did. But yeah, I mean, the sections for me of that game that are most memorable are always like the interrogations or the investigative portion of the game. I don't remember any of the driving or shooting. Like that was all completely unnecessary to like the core experience in my mind. But
they're pretty
you're right.
bare-boned, yeah.
The city was really cool, and it's really interesting to go to LA and see what remains of that time period, because there are still traces of that in Los Angeles. There's not much of it, but if you go to like Broadway, if you go to old like East LA, like what used to be downtown, you can still see like Art Deco buildings and like traces of this architecture that's still around, even if much of the city has kind of moved on and forgotten that portion of its past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always interesting to see these like vestigial things like that have remained since the past. Like I don't know, like New York City has a ton of that still. Like San Francisco, you know, like a weird like smorgasbord of different kind of architectural styles and everything. But that kind of leads me to the next one, the Assassin's Creed series. You know, like they were yearly for a while, or biannual, depending on who was developing them. They're all under Ubisoft, but like, you know, which studio at Ubisoft. But, you know, that was always the allure of what was the next Assassin's Creed game, where was it going to be set. The first one was pretty cool because, like, we didn't know what the series was when the first one was announced, but then the next one comes along, it's Renaissance Italy, and people were asking for like Japan, like feudal Japan for the entire series, and I wouldn't be surprised if they still came back and did that. But these games are always cool, like the amount of research that Ubisoft did put into like checking these cities out. Obviously, again, they took creative liberties when making them fun and like making it fun for like Ezio and Altair to scale. But I don't know, my favorite Assassin's Creed was always Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, which took the Italian setting and then just like focused on Rome. But of course, like because of gameplay things, it was my favorite with the actual overarching training your assassins. But in terms of just like the setting, like that was awesome. Like you get to, it's really like stylized. You go Leonardo da Vinci for like inventions and whatnot that can help you fight people. But I don't know, have you like had a lot of experience with Assassin's Creed games?
The second one was where I got pulled in. Where like
second one where it's at.
Yeah, I mean it was where I was enjoying the open world of it, like hitting the rooftops and all that stuff. Yeah, definitely that's my favorite one. I think, you know, the third one was cool. Like, man, was the the level of excitement I had for 3 was so high. Yeah. Like, oh man, he's got a hatchet. Like, you know, like Patriot, like just the movie. You have all these ideas of what that game could have been, but that game was just loaded with bugs, and that was where I lost touch.
Well, and also every mission giver gave you the exact same speech of like, war is difficult, people don't understand.
Right.
That was literally everyone. It's like, okay, we get it.
Through his wooden teeth.
Shades of gray, fine.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
Oh, that trailer there. Yeah,
it was
the
always,
eagle.
I mean, like,
it. Yeah.
I'm a sucker for like that setting, just like you said, like Revolutionary War era, and then like Connor, I forget how you pronounce his like actual given name, Ragagui or something.
McGregor.
Connor McGregor, but yeah, a UFC fighter in Assassin's Creed 3. That's a weird reference, Scott.
Thanks.
It's the only Connor you know. It's Connor McGregor.
That was the first one that came to mind, man.
All right.
I had to make the joke quick or it wouldn't work.
I love it. Yeah, so then like he comes along and he seems cool, but then like I didn't like how he was written. I thought he was kind of a baby in a lot of ways.
He was a bit Luke Skywalker, right? He's kind
down.
of brooding and understandably so, but it's also just like if you're with that character for 20 hours, eventually you're just like, all right, dude, you really need to like shut the hell up.
Yeah, and then they like started like forcing that colonies board game stuff into it, the homestead stuff, which I didn't think was great. That's when like the naval stuff got introduced.
And that's what's so funny was the naval stuff,
and then,
where it was like, what? And just to have Black Flag was after that.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's exactly what it was.
It was
my like now that I think about it, Assassin's Creed 2 Brotherhood is my favorite Assassin's Creed game, but like Black Flag, I still have the urge to go back and play just because. Not for the parts that felt like Assassin's Creed, just for the sailing and being a pirate. And you find those pages so your crew can sing those different songs. There's a weird name for them. And then they're just singing like, yo ho, and then you're just flying over the waves, like smoking these gigantic ships. It's gorgeous. That was one of my first PS4 games after Call of Duty Ghosts. And that series, like, I mean, it's so weird to have this year that we don't have an Assassin's Creed. Syndicate last year and Industrial Revolution, kind of turn of the century London. I didn't play much, unfortunately. Maybe I will at some point.
Yeah.
That series has covered a lot of ground, though. I mean, especially if you're including, like, graphic novels and other stuff, like, in that same universe. I think I'm fairly confident there was a comic book set in feudal Japan based in the Assassin's Creed universe.
Okay.
And there may have also been, like, one of the side-scrolling games. I'm trying to remember what that sort of sub-series was called.
Well, there's 3 of them, right?
Yeah, there's 3. One set in Russia, one, I believe, was feudal
China.
Japan, or maybe it was China.
Chronicles China.
Chronicles. Yeah, I didn't play any of the Chronicles games, so I only have a dim recollection of this, unfortunately. But regardless, if we're talking about historical games, Assassin's Creed is like covered more ground than just about any other franchise.
Yeah, it seemed like a pertinent conversation. We have Battlefield 1. It was a big deal because they're not going futuristic like Titanfall and Infinite Warfare and like Black Ops 3 did last year. It's just one of those military shooters that kind of broke the mold by going back to something that has already been done to death, or not World War I, but that kind of like 20th century war era.
And don't
yeah.
forget, Civ's out at the end of the week, which encompasses all of history.
Exactly.
So really.
Civ, I've played a fair amount of Civ with my preview build, and I know you're reviewing right now. We can't talk about the review build too much. When I played the preview, yeah, it's just like you get like really cool stories out of it, like twists on history. Like I know the one thing that Firaxis and 2K actually don't like to talk about it, but apparently Gandhi's estate like doesn't like when people bring up Civilization, the video game series. Like Gandhi, his estate does not like it because there was that one glitch where his personality would go so far into the negative, like on the good side, that it would circle back to the max aggressive, and he would just nuke everyone. So that was
wow.
So they
This
don't
is a
like.
real thing. It's super funny.
Not sure we're supposed to be talking about it now, but they don't like when Civilization is brought up in relation to Gandhi because of that glitch. But
Yeah,
anyway,
as you mentioned, it is a glitch.
so great.
So this was never
Not
like intended to
Firaxis.
happen, but yeah,
Yeah.
like it was just some weird programming thing where he could become
Sure.
so peaceful
Yeah.
that it would loop around and he
Yeah.
would just become like the ultimate. He would just attack everyone
He
instantly.
sounds like a robot.
If you look up like YouTube videos of people like combating Gandhi in Civ 5, it's hilarious.
yeah, it's like I said, like Civilization. That's one of my favorite. That's one of the reasons. Like it's my favorite series. You get that like weird twist on history based on like these real people in real places. But
Yeah, those dudes know their history. Firaxis guys are like big history buffs.
yeah,
Those weird twists where Gandhi had a bunch of nukes.
But anyway, so that is our discussion on historical video games, period pieces. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below what games you have played that set a good tone, kind of paint a location in favorable ways. All right, moving on to more pressing things, I guess. We have played the Call of Duty beta. We have our review for Battlefield 1 is up. We're going to talk about that in the next segment when Miguel comes on and talk about his review. And Titanfall 2, Rob, you and I have played a lot. You've played a lot of preview coverage as well, Scott. So we're going to talk about there were 3 shooters there in the year between Battleborn, Doom, and Overwatch, but we kind of covered those. Maybe at the end of the year, we're going to do a wrap-up, like which was the best shooter of the year or something. I don't know. But right now, we want to do like, if you have to get one shooter this fall, which one is for you? Not saying you have to. You can get all 3. That would be great too, because Infinity Ward, DICE, and Respawn are all great developers, and I've had fun with all these games so far. But I kind of wanted to touch on like the differences. I think we're all probably gonna. I don't know that we're all gonna pick one individually, but I mean we don't have to pick one. But I kind of want to discuss it for people watching. Like, which one's for you? Let's just start with Battlefield 1 because it was the first one they released on the 21st. Rob, you are enjoying this game a lot, and I think a lot of people are.
Yeah, I mean it's got kind of everything I want, and again, having like grown up with 1942 and being like obsessed with that game, like I was in a stupid ass clan. We didn't win a single match in that clan, but I was obsessed with it, and this is exciting for me. Like I remember when this was released or announced that it was going to be World War I remember being like, oh, I wanted World War II, but this is ultimately World War II. I mean,
Yeah.
It's got the heart and soul of that original game. Seeing this game take on different fronts, different sides, different like outfits for each corresponding location, planes, tanks, like it's the all-out war conflict that I think I hold dear and have always like been obsessed with. And I think they're totally. I think they also took most of us by surprise, where we were talking like, oh, how are they going to handle this World War I vibe? Like, are they going to be gentle with it? And it seems like with like operations, that mode is really unique. How you kind of get a little bit of heart and narrative, whether or not you lose or win a battle. It kind of carries over into the next one. You feel like you made an impact. Like to segue and combined more than one match. I think it's like a really engaging thing, and just in general, like I love flying planes, so
It's also
there.
this is Battlefield as opposed to any other shooter, but Battlefield I think is for more patient people as far as like what you're going to be playing, right? Because there are sometimes you're going to be covering large swaths of land and nothing's going to happen. It's about that lead up to the battles and the violence and the skirmishes, but there are also these moments where you're like you're sitting at this point, this outpost, you're covering this like to defend it, like in case someone flanks, and like you might be scouting and you're not going to see anybody for 10 minutes, but you'll still be doing something kind of vital. It's not going to be like this moment to moment thing like Call of Duty or this like fluid kind of like fast paced thing like Titanfall. But there are a lot more situations when I feel like I'm part of a bigger picture in Battlefield, whether I'm actually just like shooting another person or not, or firing a weapon at all. And that's what I like about Battlefield, and that's kind of like why I think Battlefield 1's my favorite one in a while, because that happens more often than it did with like 4 or Hardline or anything.
Right, and it's got such different, you kind of said it, different varying levels of pace, right? Like, if you are getting your ass handed to you on the front lines, hey, there's a plane you can hop into, maybe you should take up Scout and hit the hills. Like, that is a nice break, because if there's one thing I would have to say about Call of Duty games, like, as much as I have loved them in the past, but there is a moment where you might be on a bad streak, and it's like your heart can't handle it, and I'm just like, I got to take a break. I think that's like something that Battlefield kind of does differently.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you play Battlefield much yet, Scott? You have the chance?
I played a little bit of the multiplayer. I'm actually really excited to try the campaign. I like the way they've structured it, doing it sort of like a series of nonlinear vignettes. Sounds really cool to me. But yeah, man, I think you guys really hit the nail on the head. That the multiplayer seems to embrace what really distinguished Battlefield from other shooters in the past. I mean, Hardline and 4, to maybe a lesser extent, were, I think, trying to compete very directly with what Call of Duty does and be a little bit more like moment to moment, instant gratification Twitch shooter. And Battlefield 1 is very much back to, like very much slower pacing, more strategic options, vehicles, larger maps, longer modes, all that kind of stuff that makes it more strategic and gives it just a different overall feel compared to its competitors.
Sure. I don't know. Have you gotten the chance playing Infinite Warfare? Like, do you play Call of Duty's yearly?
I don't know about yearly, but I've played pretty much all of them since Modern Warfare, of the modern era. I'm not sure if I've actually completely skipped any. Like, I played a bit of Ghosts and was like, nah, and
Not
gave
for
up
you.
on Ghosts.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I love the Black Ops trilogy. I don't think I ever actually played. What was last year's game? It wasn't Infinite Warfare. It was
Black Ops 3. Yeah.
Okay, 2 years ago, the last
Advanced Warfare.
Advanced
which
Warfare.
I
Thank you.
liked.
Yeah, it was Sledgehammer Games
Yeah.
first. No, I'm sorry, second. Modern Warfare 3 was Sledgehammer Games first. Call of Duty.
Right.
The whole like 3 studio rotation thing.
Yeah, it's a little hard to keep track because there's one every year.
But Advanced Warfare I liked a lot too. Yeah.
From what I've seen of Infinite Warfare, regardless, I'm very excited. I think it's going to be kind of different, kind of cool for Call of Duty, and it is doing something very different compared to Battlefield because it's sticking with its instant gratification, die, respawn over and over, kill death ratio pursuit kind of gameplay that Call of Duty is really known for.
And if you're listening to this on the podcast or earlier in the show, apologies for discussing Infinite Warfare again, but it does have the rigs, which are kind of like we said, we're borrowing from Black Ops 3 specialists or like hero shooters or MOBAs, just these characters you can kind of get used to, which Titanfall, which we'll get into in a second, is also kind of doing something with that. But Call of Duty, like the big thing right now for me is the campaign, because I'm assuming it will just be like Call of Duty campaigns are always like a nice break from the multiplayer. I do play Call of Duty for the multiplayer. Although the campaigns like the Black Ops trilogy, I totally agree, did really cool things with their storytelling.
Yeah.
Black Ops 3 did some really weird stuff. I don't want to spoil anything, but if you played through that whole campaign, it got weird toward the end, and I actually kind of liked it for as like, I don't know, kind of cryptic as some of it was. But yeah, Call of Duty, obviously, I think it goes without saying, there's not much to say as far as like, if you liked last year's Call of Duty and you prestiged a few times, you're probably going to like this one.
Yeah, they're
It's probably a
doubling
shooter
down.
for you. If you want to sit down and play a match and, just if you're good at the like reflexes and fast pace, the twitchy kind of gameplay.
And like the
Call of
rigs
Duty's
are
for
new,
you.
but those ideas were kind of already there. Like
Yeah.
the idea of these very specialized classes. I mean, they've been diving deeper and deeper into that style for a long
Sure.
time. So this is just sort of like the next step, the next iteration, right?
Yeah.
But I think it could be cool. I like the space setting. I'm excited about the campaign. I mean, I enjoy the campaigns for the same reason I watch like superhero movies, right? And they're never going to be works of art, but they're going to be like big and loud and fun.
You're going to enjoy experiencing them for at least a little bit.
Yeah, you'll plow through it in 6 hours and be like, that was cool, and then just go play a bunch of multiplayer. Like, I don't know, I always have fun with those.
Definitely.
I think it was safe to do that. It was a good move. That is kind of the next progression. Like, I think I'm very much over the idea of the near future here on Earth. Like, I like the idea of, like, that's the next step, like colonizing planets and seeing or being able to get more creative and like showing and experimenting with gravity and all that stuff. Like, that was a good direction.
Sure. To go on to like the third one, I want to like touch on Gears of War 4 because it's not the same. It's not a first-person shooter, but it is a shooter. And Gears of War kind of established pretty much cover-based third-person shooters, or at least raised the bar back in 2006 or 2007 when it first released. I reviewed it. I gave it a 7 out of 10. I liked it. I think it's a really good game. I had some problems with it, but people hate me for it. But I've still been playing Horde mode. I've been playing multiplayer.
Dude, Horde mode is so good.
Horde mode is really good.
So
And it's
good.
the class base. And like again, like it's not the same vein as Titanfall 2, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, or Battlefield 1. It's not a first-person shooter, but it does have its own flavor. Obviously, like whether it's the third-person multiplayer that again they kind of really like brought a new watermark for back when it released.
I remember the first one being a nice break from like my Halo System Link in the garage days, and just doing like those extremely intense 2v2 competitive matches where like it's down to you and one other guy, and you're just launching sniper rifle shots. Like it's still got that from what I've seen and hearing you guys talk about that.
Yeah,
like those are good matches.
Yeah, horde mode's totally worth getting into. Jake Decker and I have still been dabbling with it. If I had more time to play that, I definitely would. The class base, there's 5 classes now. If you have all 5 people in each one of the classes, it's really fun. And it's still like, I think it's better than 3's horde mode, which I think they tried to do too much with it. This they scaled back where they needed to, but they also introduced cool things that like add really good wrinkles to the formula.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I think you're very right about competitive multiplayer. Gears really does movement and positioning in a way that no other shooter really does. Like the tactics of how you maneuver through the battlefield is so unique to Gears in a way that's like kind of indescribable. But like the heft of the characters and like the weight of cover and the way that you employ cover, it's not just about like, oh, I'm going to post up here and fire. It's like you're using cover almost as like you're charting a path to like to get to your enemies more so than like, oh, it's part of the shooting. Like it's really kind of its own, you have to think about it in its own way, in like a way that I'm not articulating well right now.
No, you're right. You're seeing like chess moves almost.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
you know, looking
absolutely.
Okay, let me jump over this cover and like being, basically flank someone. What's the best way to get them by surprise?
I wonder if like I'm pretty sure like when they first released the first Gears, that was totally intentional. Like they wanted people to take advantage of that magnetism, but it took you a few hours to get used to like, you see people doing it, like people that were doing the flip with the Nasher, like halfway through going from cover to cover, and you're like, oh my god, that's possible. I didn't even know you could shoot that like halfway through. Remember we played that live stream last year? Or was that Ultimate Edition? With
there was
Gears of War
some
Remake.
guy who was like coming down the corridor, just sliding around, and it's heart gripping. It was like, oh yeah, it's really creepy,
kind of spooky. And then like it, I don't know, like that Gears like still feels great. It still is very much Gears of War. They didn't do a ton of new things with this, but like I think they did enough. Like it's well worth going back to the series for sure. You did a great documentary on. We did the GameSpot Studios, and you led that one up on kind of Rod Ferguson, like Cliff Bleszinski back in the day, like the dad issues, the emotional core of the series.
The other side of Gears that isn't like the chainsaws and the blood and gore and stuff, because it's always been there. Like there's always been that side of Gears, which has always struck me as very odd, considering that the other half of it is so violent and gory and like over the top, masculine, chest bump, whatever. So it was always so weird to me that those two things existed within the same game, and I just decided to kind of dig into it. And fortunately for us, Rod Ferguson is like really forthcoming with his answers and was really really generous with like what he was willing to tell us about that aspect of the game. So.
Very well spoken and articulate guy for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, last one, Titanfall 2. That is releasing a week from Friday.
I think it's this Friday, isn't it?
No. Battlefield 1 and Civ 6 are this Friday. It's weird because we've had all these ahead of time.
Yeah.
So
next week.
Yeah, so Battlefield 1 and Civilization 6 are Friday. Not that Civilization 6 is a shooter. And then Titanfall is a week after on the 28th.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. It's hard to keep track because we played all of them at this point, and like even the public has like had early access to like Battlefield and then now Call of Duty on PS4. But Titanfall 2 is that last one we want to talk about, and this is the one I think a lot of people are curious about because the first one was a great game. It felt awesome. It established this new kind of trend in shooters of focusing on movement. And like Black Ops 3, Advanced Warfare, the Call of Duties kind of took over Overwatch. Some of the characters, like Lucio, can like wall run and everything and whatnot. Hanzo can jump over and vault, but that's irrelevant.
Grappling hooks. So many grappling hooks.
Grappling hooks now. There's a lot of them this year.
Big thing.
Titanfall 2 introduces one, but you and I have played a lot of it after the review event. Scott, you've done some extensive preview coverage on Titanfall 2, and just like leaving aside anything else, despite how much I like Battlefield 1, despite how like promising Call of Duty has been in some respects, I'm excited about Titanfall 2 because I got burnt out in the first one like a lot of people. It was always cranked up to 11, and I know after we did a few feature videos on the development team at Respawn, they said one thing they want to do is kind of tune it back in certain respects, so it's not always cranked up to 11. It sometimes goes down to like 5, so you have these calmer moments, and then it's that lead up, like that Battlefield, that Overwatch lead up to the action where you're kind of planning things out, and then your plan's going to fall apart, and you're going to have to react to that. But also, like, I don't want to focus too much on the Titans because it's easy to do with Titanfall 2, but obviously it's that interplay between pilots and Titans, but also the fact that Titans are more like heroes now rather than these just two things that you're going to like deck out with similar loadouts as the next person. Like, can you talk about how like Scorch or Ronin or North Star kind of like playing into this new formula?
Yeah, I don't. Those Titans are great. I mean, they're really great. But I would say, for me at least, it's the mobility. I mean, you said it. Like so many games have kind of taken that path, but there is something about Titanfall's, especially their like map layout of like chaining your parkour moves in such a manner where it just feels so empowering. That game is, for me at least, it's like the break from Battlefield. I think those two are like actually probably the most diverse as far as that spectrum goes.
I get so anxious kind of just like sprinting in Battlefield when I could just be like grappling hook and wall running and like ground sliding in Titanfall.
It's hard to go back once you've had those abilities in other games. It's like you just want to, because you start thinking about maps and mobility in different ways. You see some, vantage point, like I can just grappling. No, I can't. This is Battlefield.
But yeah, Titanfall 2, like it's crazy from what we played. Like Scott, I think you were the first one on GameSpot to actually see all 6 Titans in action. Rob and I had done coverage when it was still just Scorch and Ion. Now, all 3 of us have played it with 6 Titans, and I don't want to talk too much about it from my perspective because I'm reviewing it. I'm kind of in the middle of the review right now, but there's definitely a feel that like not only do you want to know the Titans so you know how to use them, but you also want to see a North Star and know how to counter them. You want to see an Ion and know what not to do against an Ion, and like if you're a pilot, how to take them out. But there's definitely much more of, like you said earlier, like a chess game vibe, like you said with Gears. But like even back at E3 when I interviewed Vince Zampella, he was saying like they were almost inspired by fighting games, which you wouldn't think of because it's that thing you want to know how to counter all these characters. But I don't know, what's your take on Titanfall 2? Like there are a lot of these minor additions that are kind of, they're trying to set it apart from Titanfall 1, but, ideally they'd like people to keep playing. Do you think it has the legs? Do you think like Titanfall 2 could be the shooter of the fall for a lot of people?
I mean, so the nice thing about Titanfall is I think it's positioning itself so that it doesn't have to be the shooter. Like it's offering something a little bit different in that it does have this combination of the, the high mobility of pilots, and then also like the high durability of Titans and like having to earn Titans, just the sort of the flow of combat and the way that those two things marry in any given match gives it a very unique kind of pacing and feel and strategy that I think it's just going to be a matter of taste for most people. So in terms of does it have enough legs? I don't know. I think it definitely is going to have more longevity, enjoy more longevity than the original Titanfall. I think it's made some really smart changes that are going to keep people invested for a longer period of time. The 6 Titans being part of that. And also having the campaign, I think will endear the game to gamers, right? I think more people will want to hang on to the game once they kind of have developed an understanding of the universe and kind of connect with the Titans, and hopefully that will actually impact sort of the emotional connection even in multiplayer. So we'll see. Who knows? I mean, I really enjoyed all the time I spent with the game. I don't know that it's going to dethrone Battlefield, especially now that we know that it's as good as it is. But I could totally see myself enjoying both and wanting to take a break from one and play the other because they offer such different things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like,
and just touching on what you said, like even the fact that it is a good move that they've really characterized these Titans, because I'm almost fairly certain, to be honest, like that there will be a 7th Titan down the road, right? Like there will be that reason to come back and check it out, even if it is for a few hours. But I think that's like a neat idea.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, we could talk about it all we want, but like at the very least, this year has been awesome for shooters. You had like Battleborn, Overwatch, Diablo, Doom from earlier in the year.
I knew what you meant.
And now you have these 4. You have Gears of War 4 as a third-person shooter, but in terms of first-person, you have Battlefield 1, Titanfall 2, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, all of which, the ones we haven't officially reviewed, still seem somewhat promising in a lot of respects. So, that is the shooters releasing this fall. So which one do you think is for you? Titanfall 2, Gears of War 4, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, or Battlefield 1? Let us know in the comments below. Scott Butterworth, unfortunately, we have to bring someone on, not replace you, but bring someone on to help supplement.
Miguel's turn to finally get into Battlefield.
We're going to get way more into Battlefield 1. Right. This is like Miguel's opinion. He scored it and everything, gave it a 9 out of 10. We'll get into that. But Scott, thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely, guys.
See you later.
See ya.
That stream earlier, I didn't play well at all. Battlefield 1. I got killed quite a lot.
Yeah, highs and lows. I had some lows during the end of that stream. But that game is super fun. There's always something to be said about streaming a game. Like, you kind of play a little differently. Like, I would be playing it at a much more boring rate. You know, I'd be just like real campy with a sniper rifle if I was getting my ass kicked on the ground, like we said. But yeah, it's a good game.
I've definitely been getting my ass kicked in Battlefield 1. I've had a few good matches where I'm like, I just really helped my team. But Miguel Concepcion, you reviewed it for GameSpot. Miguel, you do a lot of freelance work for us. You're working from the office a lot lately. You're working on another review for us right now, which can't completely Call of Duty. You can't give an opinion, but you're working on the review for us. You gave Battlefield 1 a 9 out of 10. You thought this game was superb, as a lot of us do. So let's talk about it. Broad strokes. Why is this game like good?
Well, I found that both the single player and the multiplayer were both excellent. Any kind of misgivings I had or anything that I thought were blemishes was actually just coming down to the UI, especially in the multiplayer. Something like not being able to exit the multiplayer mode in between matches was really surprising.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
It was actually easier. You actually have to wait for the next match to start before you can actually get into the pause menu.
Oh, okay.
And it came to the point where it was probably easier for me to just like exit out of the game and then relaunch it in order to get back into the main menu.
Yeah, that's ugly.
Dan, it's just like those kind of like quality of life things they could hopefully improve down the road, like patch stuff and whatnot. But what do you think of the World War I setting? Do you think it kind of lends itself well to this kind of game?
Yeah, I thought it was almost long overdue. You know, it was always, whenever you see like a feature about where should this shooter franchise go, World War I is always like thrown as sort of like a novelty suggestion or an afterthought. And like EA and DICE thought they can just like jump straight into and like make it this full-on AAA production. And I just thought they did a great job on it, to the point that you could really see like where it can go with a possible sequel or DLCs. Obviously, when you have like this 4-year-long conflict, there's so many battles that you can cover, especially when even like the campaign covers mostly wars from like the last 2 years. I mean, battles from the last 2 years of the war. There were obviously many other conflicts in the initial stages, especially with this sort of the seesaw of the Germans and the French on the Western Front that pretty much took up like the first 6 months.
Yeah. I do want to talk about the progression, because Rob, you and I, you had like how many battle packs saved up for the stream we did today? 6 when we opened it up. Yeah, so the battle packs are kind of like what like Overwatch does with loot crates, Call of Duty's doing with its supply drops, I think they're called. A lot of games do that now. It's that randomized items. I think Mass Effect 3, I remember, was the first one I remember on consoles, kind of introducing that random loot box. Weird segue for that, but I'm kind of interested in how the progression feels for this. Like, are you like unlocking new like these World War I weapons pretty often, these new skins, or like how does the progression feel overall? Because Call of Duty, that's like the big draw for me, is the progression.
Well, it's multi-layered, not surprisingly. The currency that you earn to buy new weapons is these war bonds that you get not through completing matches, but through leveling up. So I want to make that distinction. Okay. There's also these medals that sort of work like challenges. I mean, in the classic sense of challenges, except in order for it incentivizes you to come back weekly because these challenges are essentially temporary. And you also have to make sure that you equip these medals so you actually get you can actually, like, I guess for lack of a better word, grow these medals. Yeah. I really appreciate how you can just mold your arsenal based on what you prefer, because it just has such a wide spectrum of old school weapons, and it will take like even like the most hardcore player like weeks to possibly get like the full collection.
So I remember I was playing as a support class earlier, and I know since the betas, in the alpha, they introduced the mortar. I don't believe that was there before release, so I've been using that a lot now. So, and I like swap out the other possible items there for the mortar all the time because I really like that. It kind of makes the support class kind of literally just more support. You're kind of like bombarding these areas, trying to clear out these strongholds. And I was telling Rob earlier on the episode that I like Battlefield because there's those moments where like you have to be kind of patient to be good at Battlefield, right? It's like about placement it's literally about placement on the battlefield. And it's kind of about putting yourself in the right situation to help, whether you're killing somebody or not, or you're just laying down suppressing fire, or you're kind of going this flanking mission like around to just get this stronghold no one's paying attention to. Does this feel like a kind of return to form for the Battlefield series in a lot of ways? Because I know I think 4, there was a lot of server issues when was it 4 launched, and obviously like Hardline was kind of like Scott was saying earlier, it's still that like a lot of it was more like close quarters stuff, like kind of trying to combat these other modern military shooters. But does Battlefield 1 seem like kind of a return to tradition for the Battlefield franchise?
I'd say so, especially when, as a contrast, the amount of work and imagination they put into the maps. It just seems like actual maps that actual locations you could actually visit in real life. And I say a contrast because so many of the maps from Hardline seemed like so symmetrical by comparison. Obviously, to be good at any kind of like map in any multiplayer shooter, it just really comes down to just memorizing the layout. Because I think one of my favorite maps is this one in this French farm that shares like a couple towns, and half of the buildings are in ruins. Yeah. And you know, you're gonna have your share of camping spots and just areas where you can snipe well. In all, I really appreciate the maps because it also lent to me playing outside my comfort zone, trying out classes I usually don't play with.
Right.
I thought it was really like sniper friendly, and at least before the wide release, my at-home cable connection with a wireless router, I was able to pull off sniper kills without any kind of lag or any issues, and I was very pleased with that.
Yeah, because then there's like that analog feel. All these weapons, they're older weapons. There's that you have to lead targets. There's bullet drop, like especially like on sniper rifles when you're shooting at long distances. But
just like reloading.
Oh yeah,
you have to reload. Like not even just the clip,
but
let
like
go of
the zoom
bolt.
button.
Yeah, I mean for artillery things, pieces too. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. There's definitely more. It's Battlefield, so there's more weight to the weapons here than Call of Duty. It feels like you're just like pointing this toy gun at people, but there's more weight to them. It's a little bit harder. Like a lot of times I'll see a guy across a field and I'll be using the trench submachine gun, and I'll be like, I can't make this shot. By the time I hit him once and do like 10 damage to him, he's gonna have killed me with whatever he's using. And I actually pick my shots more consistently. I'm like paying more attention to the situation than I would in like a lot of other like twitchy kind of shooters, but. There's also the thing that you said that these don't feel like arenas to me. These feel like real places that people just happen to be like playing a game on. I don't know. And it does feel a lot more like there are these kind of, there's this like natural feel to them. Like organic, I guess would be the term.
I mean, when you play something like Conquest, sometimes you think this side is naturally the other team's side, but that never really happens because it keeps evolving. Like a team that can dominate one side of the map, by the end of the match, they end up dominating the other side. And you guys like organically just switch areas. One thing I always love about these Battlefield maps is because it really caters to teamwork. I mean, obviously you could be like a lone wolf for a little bit, but you probably won't be that much of you won't really contribute much in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, definitely. And it's kind of like some of the maps play out as like these individual skirmishes that are playing out at different capture points or like houses or farms, like you said. Others kind of like Sinai Desert, I always found that it was kind of like these outlying battles that are playing into the central one in the town. It's kind of like cool. And then there's the one along the coast. I forget the name of it with the dreadnought and the castle. And that's the one where it's
FAO like, Fortress.
FAO Fortress, yes. And that's the one where it's kind of, you know, like until the dreadnought comes in, everybody's kind of attacking the castle, and the castle's that stronghold that it's kind of tough to take. But then there's the one up on the hill you can take. I don't know. It's just kind of thinking back on the stories that come out of these matches. Like, oh, like I couldn't take that castle, but then all of a sudden I came in the dreadnought, started bombarding it, killed everybody. People came in the back and took it. Then I capsized in the ship, this really happened to me. I got smoked.
No, yeah. I mean, it's kind of nice to. Because it was a little worrisome when, like, you know, they introduced the behemoth blimp. Like, oh my God, this thing's just gonna wreck shop. However, the balancing of it seems to be pretty safe. Like, you know, if it is a landslide match and it's 20 minutes long and you're just, you know, having not these behemoths, you kind of know halfway through that your team's going to lose.
Sure.
But now it's like, okay, even if we are winning, we have to worry about a tank. And that is your automatic sense of drive for teamwork is like, we have to take out that, train. We have to take out the train or whatever behemoth it is in order to like ensure that we will win. And the matches have been so tight. Like I won one as a train artillery conductor. Like we won by 3 tickets. It was exhilarating. Like,
which essentially is 3 seconds for those who haven't played the
right,
game. Yeah.
Right.
And it's cool when the behemoths come in, how they switch like your role. Like if you're in a plane before the behemoth, before like an airship comes in, you're doing strafing runs, you're bombing tanks, you're dogfighting with other planes, you're maybe like again, strafing runs or bombing like a capture point to help your foot soldiers get in there. The airship comes along, and it's pretty much like you're one of the first lines of defense to take out the gondolas underneath it that have all the machine guns and dropping bombs and whatnot. And that's one thing I like, how these matches can, like you said, the scenario switches so fast. Like you could be a scout and you're like aiming across this field trying to take out people that are trying to cross it to get to the capture point. You go into this house next door, it just becomes close quarters battles, and you are having a tough time with just your sidearm against shotguns. I do want to talk quickly about the campaign, because that was like one thing that nobody really played before. Like, you came out, there's no beta or alpha from what I understand, but what did you think of the campaign, like as far as, again, making use of the World War I setting, or just overall quality? Like how fun was it?
Well, it's presented in this anthology format where it almost comes off where it seems like there are all these, each segment could have been written by a different writer. 'Cause
Right.
each one has their own tone. Each main character kind of has their own personality and motivations. Overall, it just really, it was thoughtful and heartfelt. And it really is a contrast with the previous Battlefield campaigns, where by comparison, it actually really accentuates how the prior campaigns, especially with Battlefield 3 and 4, how those were just like these persistent powder kegs, where each chapter felt like it had something to prove, and it always felt some obligation to keep like your pulse up. This one, it's, there's like this ebb and flow with, like say with like this tank mission, the camaraderie with that you quickly gain from meeting all these strangers in this tank. There's this really heartfelt one in where this veteran, it looks like he's like 70 years old, and it's like the 1950s, and he's reflecting on his time when he was protecting his twin brother in this mission in the Alps.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to play it, because for all intents and purposes, it seems like it's making use of the World War I setting more than maybe the multiplayer in some respects as far as the storytelling goes. And that is the appeal to me because of the heart that appears to be there.
I mean, I will also say that I love that many of the settings aren't just reusing assets from the multiplayer map. I mean, some games can get away with that, but I really thought that the art team really did a great job in just really mixing things up. And there was one particular map that actually looked like some 19th century painting with just these really, really yellow and orange afternoons. I don't want to spoil the setting, because sometimes just even seeing these levels for the first time is a pleasant surprise.
Sure. Yeah. Well, anyway, that is Battlefield 1. Miguel Concepcion, thanks so much for coming on to talk about it.
problem.
You gave it a 9 out of 10. Your review is up, video review as well as written on GameSpot. I think it's still promo at the top of the page, so you can go read that right now if you're interested in Battlefield 1 and checking it out. But let us know what you think about the game in the comments below once you get to play it. All right, Miguel, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We'll let you off right now, and then
Okay.
we're going to bring on Justin Haywald to talk about a little thing happening Thursday that we just found out today. Red Dead 2, whatever it's going to be called. Rockstar Games.
That's it.
Yeah.
Red Dead
We'll
2.
get more into it when he comes down, but yeah, we got to actually, like, after the this segment, we're going to kind of try to, talk about, I think we're like going to pimp a little stream we're doing Thursday morning. Me and you and Jake are going to come in, I think.
Awesome.
Cool, yeah, we're going to be playing Red Dead Redemption. I think Jake's got to save a little bit into the game, a couple hours.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be playing that right before the trailer releases and everything.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I mean that thing's on Xbox now.
Yeah.
or Xbox One, excuse me. I actually never finished Red Dead, like a jerkhead. I've been working on it, and this just gives me even more drive to have it completed. Hello, Justin.
Justin Haywald, as usual, comes in with high amounts of energy to the lobby.
We're here to shoot some people, right? You guys have been shooting people all day.
With
I was
6
watching in the
shooters.
background, but there's a delay,
Oh yeah.
so
It's all right.
I didn't know that it was my turn.
So the other day, we got a little teaser image from Rockstar. It was kind of this red background with the Rockstar logo. We've been hearing, there were rumors circulating back around E3, right? That we might be seeing a Red Dead Redemption remaster or a new sequel. And now we kind of know based on the image that we saw today, which shows, I think it was like 6 people coming over the hilltop with that same background or a group of people. It's clearly Red Dead 2 or sequel or whatever
Well,
it's
they've
going to
said
be called.
now that Red Dead Redemption 2.
Red Dead Redemption 2. Now we know Thursday there's going to be the trailer dropping. we're doing a viewing party. I was just talking to Rob about it. So we just wanted to talk today about what we want from Red Dead Redemption 2. You played Red Dead Redemption extensively. I'm assuming you beat it.
Red Dead Redemption, I never played Red Dead Revolver.
I did a lot, actually. Weirdly, I played on the original Xbox, like a third-person shooter. I think there's actually a lot of people that don't.
It's a hard game to go back
it.
to.
It is. It's tough. I mean, it was really fun though. I mean, there were like these boss fights on these missions. There were these legendary weapons you get as you're playing through it. And it's so weird that it became Red Dead Redemption because there's like eons or like just so different experiences. But Red Dead Redemption, Justin, when's the last time you played? Have you played it recently at all?
I played it when it came out, but I mean, that's a game that sticks with you. The story in that game, it's still, I would say, one of my favorite games of all time. You have those quiet moments when, in other games, when you're just kind of going across an empty plain, like when you're just going across a world, it's boring. But in here, it's like, it felt like there was so much life, and then you have those musical cues, like that just come up, and you're like, oh, I'm going into Mexico. Or that part near the end of the game when you just, like, you're riding down the hill and you have the music playing over it. It's like, emotionally, that still touches me. Like, I still get chills thinking about it.
Yeah, if there wasn't that bass, that rumbling bass, it's like dong da da dong da da dong da dong. Like, holy God, you're exactly right. You're just kind of wandering a really barren desert, but it's exciting.
And the characters are so memorable. Like John Marston, as a character, like he nailed that perfectly. That spaghetti Western character who's kind of on both sides of the law, who's an anti-hero, but someone you also relate with and someone you want to do well, someone you want to win.
It's like a bad dude trying to be good, and then he's forced to be bad again because what the government comes and is like trying to take his land. What is the storyline? Because I know his family's in trouble too, but I don't know. I'm trying to remember what actually. I love that game, but so much escapes me. It's such a big game.
Every now and then, I know that you
no, sorry. The government comes back looking for his ex-cohorts from his gang. They're trying to hunt them down because they've been active again. So then they ask him to go. Like,
I thought the government came down and asked me to kill a lot of rabbits because I did a lot of that.
Go hunt
killing
some
rabbits all the
jackrabbits.
time.
That sounds about right.
That's also like, yeah, I mean, when you look at Grand Theft Auto 5, obviously, this game was Red Dead Redemption was 2010, if I'm not mistaken. Grand Theft Auto 5 being 2013, but 3 years before that, there wasn't as much to do in Red Dead Redemption. Obviously, that's going to happen when Grand Theft Auto 5 comes out 3 years after it. But I remember they just nailed that setting, like you said, that Jose Gonzalez song that plays when he's coming over the hill in Mexico. It's like step in front of a runaway train. It's such an awesome moment. Like the sun, and like I saw it when the sun was going down. My friend saw it was coming up, and like stuff. Some people saw it at night, depending on when you go in. Yeah, but it really nailed that story, and that's what I'm wondering where Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to go from there, because Red Dead Redemption, for as large of a game as it was, is a pretty intimate, personal thing. It's John Marston confronting the people he used to roll with when they were like robbing trains and banks and whatnot, but it's like a revenge tale. I don't know that we should spoil the ending. I mean, it's been a while.
No, please don't.
But now that Red Dead Redemption 2 is on the way out, like,
this will be a chance for the first time for people to try it out.
I mean, it's backwards compatible on Xbox One, right? That's what we're going to be playing on Thursday, I think. But yeah, go play this game because I'm wondering how connected 2 will be to it, because it shows a handful of people. Like, I don't have people like started looking at the faces yet in the image.
I was about to say,
you can kind of see the faces, right?
Yeah, you could kind of see the whoever is first, like, you know, the center character. It didn't look like John Marston.
I thought it kind of did.
I thought it didn't.
Unless it was like a prequel or something. Like, we don't know when there's no details about it aside from like, this is Red Dead Redemption 2.
It's not. There are no confirmed details, but speculation is running that it could be a prequel.
So there are 7 people. There's one in the middle.
His hair looks shorter. See?
Yeah, and it just gets. I mean, so it's coming out fall 2017, but it looks like it's got like Magnificent 7 vibes or like Hateful Eight, if you like that. I don't know, but But they also said they're going to have a new online experience, so that kind of lends itself, you know, like maybe it's going to be like, I'm assuming it's going to be GTA Online-ish in the Wild West.
And it's going to come out months later.
Yeah. And then they're going to keep introducing new DLC, and despite the fact that I haven't played it in 2 years, a ton of people still play GTA Online. And like with the new
I
do. Yeah, you
I
do
go
all
back
the time.
all the time.
Sometimes if you come in early in the morning, I just see you playing that. Actually, I just saw you playing that today when you should have been work. No, I'm just kidding. I'm being a jerk.
Well, not to segue too much onto like GTA Online, but for what it is, I think it's a pretty fantastic segment to Grand Theft Auto 5. Like, where it's like just having seen when it first came out to now, it's pretty wild what, like, you open up that game now and it's just like all this activity going on in the open world, like now there are biker gangs. I don't know if you've even seen any of this new update. It is wild. Like basically you just step out your door and it's just chaos. Which, is kind of fitting for Red Dead Redemption, right? Like if you can imagine like being in your own gang and hitting the Old West.
Yeah, but the success that they found with GTA Online, like there's no way they can't bring that idea over to Red Dead Redemption. But part of me also doesn't want that. Like that, it's a cool idea, and GTA Online's done it so well. But the thing that stood out for Red Dead for me was that single player experience, something that you're not going to be able to get in a GTA Online, as cool as that is. And with GTA Online, they also kind of skipped all of the single player DLC. We got promises of more of the story.
Right.
And I don't want them to sacrifice that element for just the thing that's going to 100% be successful and 100% be fun. Like I still want that emotional core of a single player experience.
After seeing the teaser image, here's what I thought about. GTA 5 introduced, Franklin, Michael, and Trevor. You can swap between them on the fly. How ambitious would it be to be able to swap between 7 people in the Wild West? I doubt. That's what I want. I don't know how possible that is in this day and age to be able to, because it's seamless in GTA 5. You fly up, and at a certain point in the game, once you unlock all 3 people and meet them, you just fly up, go to Franklin over in this part of LA. Sorry, Los Santos. Zoom out, go back into Michael, do his like midlife crisis stuff. Go to Trevor, just be a psycho.
Who is in a police chase.
And they're all like different flavors, right? Like again, Trevor is doing this police chase stuff. Michael's going like this midlife crisis, but also trying not to get into like too much bad shit. And then you have like Franklin, who himself is trying to escape the bad stuff to be a better person, kind of like John Marston, I guess. But
that's ambitious as
I
hell.
know.
6 or
7
different people.
That'd be awesome. Like to be able to zoom out, like go to this person who's like a robber, and then like just watching all the people come together. Like this dude's a sheriff, maybe. But I mean, obviously the teaser image implies that they're kind of a gang. They're walking with each other toward a camera. But I'm knowing Rockstar, I'm sure they'll be very distinct characters, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how they deal with that structure, because Red Dead Redemption, for all intents and purposes, was just Grand Theft Auto put into the Wild West, and I would assume they would try to like take GTA 5's formula and kind of evolve into something new. So that's what I was hoping, because I was hoping they actually make use of this ensemble cast.
Or even make that co-op, like that you could play that single player experience and each person takes on a different role, and maybe you can swap out between different ones. But you're all playing together, but in a story.
Yeah. Where do they go from here, like with the world? Because I mean, the Wild West, it was Armadillo, Texas you start off in, and then you're kind of going around Texas over the border to Mexico. What if this is like a Tombstone, Arizona thing, or like I don't know, what kind of? Do you guys have any ideas for settings they'd want to see it in? Or like, what if it's?
I'd like to see some snow.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what if it's like a Hateful Eight kind of like the Badlands of Montana kind of feel?
Well, you could do like northern Arizona, right? Like
Sure.
even up there.
Yeah, parts of the Southwest have like different climates and just desert and stuff.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'd like to see them kind of, because I mean, aside from when you go into the marshes, like the swamps and whatnot, and like some of the fields in Red Dead Redemption, it was all very just desert feeling. Obviously, that makes sense with the Wild West, but I'm kind of looking forward to seeing where they're going to set it and like what, because like what maybe like they'll take an actual place and fictionalize it, kind of like Mafia 3 did or GTA 5, all the Grand Theft Autos did.
Or Watch Dogs 2, set in San Francisco. It would be cool to see that Gold Rush era, that setting.
Yeah. What if Rockstar a year after did a better San Francisco, but like 100 years before? No, I'm not implying anything. I haven't
The
played
pre-earthquake San Francisco.
Yeah, before the fires and whatnot too.
Yeah, but like what era, right? What like time period? Yeah.
Yeah, because that's like a big deal. I mean, like again, there's probably I need to look into like seeing how many people like have dissected the stuff going on. But this gang looks cool. This one dude's got a trench coat on.
Dude, the bowler hat.
Then one dude looks like he's got a long like double barrel shotgun. Another one's got a huge gun draped over his shoulder. The main dude's got a rifle. I don't like this. Like the fact that they're just the first image they show off is all 7 people. I have to imagine, like Justin said, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe the new online experience is a co-op thing, or maybe like I said, you're swapping. I hope to God you can swap between 7 people. Like how you would not get bored with that game.
That'd be
between 7 people.
Too much.
I know it
7
would.
people would be too
We're talking
many
about what
people.
we want. This is wishful thinking. Rockstar can do what they want. I'm sure they'll pull it off. But if I was designing this game and I was like a dictator in the development studio, I'd be like, all right.
Or they would.
We're gonna be able to swap on the fly between how many people do we want? I'm like 7. They're like, no, really, how many? 7.
Get out. You're fired.
No, they couldn't fire me. I'm a dictator. No, but
But I'm
anyway.
saying you would fire other people.
Oh,
like
yeah,
we can't do that. And he's like,
100%.
well, you're fired.
Yeah, be better. No, just kidding. I don't know. Like,
Sure.
it's just weird that the teaser image itself is like it's 7 people. Like there has to be something to that. Like it's the first image they're showing off. Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern time is when the trailer's dropping. 8 a.m. our time. We're going to be in early in the morning playing Red Dead Redemption at like 7 a.m.
I'm into it.
Playing that for an hour, watch the trailer, and then we're going to get together and talk about it afterward. That trailer is going to be sick.
What do you think the first shot of the trailer is going to be?
A sunrise. No, a sunset.
I'm saying tumbleweed.
Tumbleweed?
And then
with a whistle?
Yeah, definitely a whistle. And then a boot.
In the dust? No, a horse
Stagecoach.
all of a sudden gallops by from the camera.
Stagecoach, camera underneath the stagecoach, like it rides over, dusty,
A
dust
train
comes
robbery
up.
with 7 people that are swapping between it. I'm not letting it go. No, imagine if like one of the last shots does show like that thing, like zooming out and then back into someone else. They wouldn't do that with us. I'm assuming it's gonna be a pretty cinematic trailer and not.
Yeah,
like,
it's not gonna be gameplay as much.
Because right now it's fall 2017.
Right.
Who knows when it's gonna actually release? But that's the tentative placeholder right now.
I just want more customization because especially after GTA and how you're able to just customize every little thing in that game. And I loved the costumes and things you could unlock in Red Dead Redemption. Like imagine being able to paint your stage, like trick out a stagecoach, like crazy, like get crazy horses and just paint them however you want.
Yeah.
Like I want coats of paint and I want to paint my horse.
I love the
weirdo.
idea. No, you're
Someone
zebra stripe horse.
There's some predictions in the chat. Diablos X or Diablos X. I apologize if I'm butchering that, but he said the 7 people in the picture could be the people you fight against. Maybe a gang you're going after. So who knows?
Bosses.
Super Mega Loser said maybe they're all one person but dressed differently, superimposed next to each other.
It's a rat king. Could be a rat king.
Yeah, someone was saying third guy from the left looks like John. We don't have the image up right now, but it kind of does actually. He's wearing that same kind of almost bowler hat with like a vest on. But again, like you get different outfits as John. But yeah, I don't know. Like needless to say, I mean, people are kind of like making fun of everybody for hyping it up, but
What if this is tied in to HBO and this is all going to sync up with Westworld?
yeah, like robots and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah.
It
Like
could be,
so
I
this
don't know.
is going to be the playable version of Westworld. That's how they're financing it. Because Rockstar, they probably don't have a lot of money. Their games are never very successful.
All right.
So, do you know? Okay. So you're telling me that the game is just repeating the same day?
No, it's
Like
going
in
to
West-
be like
like in
Majora's
Westworld?
Mask. You'll relive it each day, and you're trying to figure
you
out
just
what's
want
going
every
on.
game to be like Majora's Mask, and so do I.
I do, yeah.
But if Majora's Mask could swap between 7 people. So needless to say, the teaser image has got us all excited. Trying not to hype it up too much, but I don't know. It's Rockstar. It's always exciting because they're so secretive most of the time. Fall 2017, a tentative placeholder release date. Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, the trailer's going to be up. Here at GameSpot, come back, tune in. Probably starting, I don't know what time, early in the morning Pacific time, like 7.
Trailers dropping at
8.
8 Pacific.
So maybe like
We'll be here at
6.
6.
We'll be here early. We'll get some coffee. We'll bring in like bagels or something. We'll be playing Red Dead Redemption on Xbox One, the backwards compatible version. I think Jake and you both have saves somewhere in the game, so we're not gonna start from the beginning and do all that ranch work and whatnot. But
Right.
yeah. So I'm looking forward to the trailer. That'll be up, and then we'll right after that convene again with a bunch of people. Justin, I don't know if you're gonna be here, but
Are you going to wear cowboy hats? I'll bring a
I
cowboy
was
hat.
gonna say
I'll
that.
wear-
In
yeah,
Spurs, dude.
yeah.
You'll know.
sick.
Ashless
Walking down
chaps.
2nd Street in San Francisco, clinking along the sidewalk.
It wouldn't be that far off.
Yeah. All right. So Red Dead Redemption 2, the trailer is coming out. Let us know what you want to see in the sequel to the 2010 title. Let us know in the comments below. Man, I'm excited for that. It's gonna
Oh,
be,
God, it's going to
Yeah.
I'm excited. It's Red Dead Redemption. I didn't get to play until like a year after. I think 2010 it released, and that was my. I don't want to give away my age. In 2010 I was a 6-year-old. No, just kidding. No, I was a freshman in college, so I didn't like get much chance to play video games that first semester. I think it
Right.
like released right around then. So then I got back into that, and like Halo Reach I think was another game that came out right around then. Yeah.
You didn't touch on the controversy that seemed to sprung up, whether this should be Red Dead 3 or Red Dead Redemption 2. Because everyone was like, no, don't call this Red Dead Redemption 2. It's going to be, this is Red Dead 3, something else, Red Dead. Because there are so many R words you could use. Red Dead Revolver, and then Red Dead Redemption, Red Dead Revival, Red Dead
Revisited.
Retribution, Red Dead
Reeboks.
Red Dead Robot Attack. That's Westworld again.
Red
Yep.
Dead Robot.
Perfect.
That's what
Sick.
I want. Yeah.
Oh man, you guys have plans for the rest of the week aside from work or Red Dead?
Red Dead Romance. I'm just going to think
Battlefield.
of all the R words.
He's gonna keep rattling those off. Rob, what are you doing this weekend? It's only Tuesday. I don't know if you have weekend plans yet.
I want to play Battlefield campaign, man.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward
Really
to that. I might be playing a little more Call of Duty. You and I are going down to LA Friday for a pretty cool project. Talk about that later on down the road. A lot of games coming out later this week. Civ 6. Oh man, shit. I'll be playing a lot of Civ 6. I already have. I'm gonna play Civ 6. Anyway,
Red Dead Rubbers.
Okay. All right. Well, on that note, everybody, as always, thank you for joining us, whether you're listening on iTunes, whether you are kind of like watching us right now in our delirious state, or whether you're watching us on YouTube, GameSpot.com. As always, much appreciated. We will see you hopefully Thursday. We're watching the Red Dead Redemption 2 trailer. We're going to talk about it, play Red Dead Redemption. But anyway, until next week, see you then.
Red Dead ribbed.